Good morning and welcome to this EBA webinar, Mapping e-methane Plants and Technologies, the role of e-methane in the total energy mix. My name is Giulia Cancian. I'm the Secretary General of the European Biogas Association, and I will be your event moderator for today. So in the past couple of years, you heard us speaking a lot about the potential of sustainable biomethane and its role into the future energy mix. We really think at EBA that it is essential for the future of our industry, but also for completing energy system integration to explore multiple technological pathways. And it is for this reason that in 2024, EBA Secretariat and members has been focusing on alternative production pathways on top of its usual focus and topics. So today, we will do a first deep dive into methanation, and we will discover the contribution of e-methane in the overall energy mix today and into the future. I'm saying today because to better understand the future, what we do is that we focus on the present. What are the technologies that are emerging at the moment? What are the main market trends? What are the countries that are affirming themselves as leaders in methanation? And how many pilots are active in Europe and how many plants are active in Europe? So today, we will try to answer to all these questions. We will start first with a keynote from the International Energy Agency. Then we will proceed with our own Miche De Corte, our technical director and co-author of a white paper that we care to launch today. We will then have a short Q&A session so that you can ask all your questions that you have on our recent publication on methanation. And we will then proceed on a panel discussion, including experts in the sector, Alessandro Agostini, Gauthier Mangenot, and Etienne Philippe. So in any way and in any moment of this webinar, please do not hesitate to post your questions during the presentations or to support the questions that the others have posted, should you be interested in hearing a reply. To do that, you will have to use the Q&A box that you will find at the bottom of the screen. The slide of the webinar will, of course, be made available together with our publication, the white paper on methanation. But let's get down to business for today. And I would like to welcome to the stage, to the virtual stage, Gergely Molenaar, energy analyst on natural gas from the International Energy Agency. Welcome, Gergely.
Dear Julia, many thanks for your kind words of introduction. My name is Gergely Molenaar. I'm a gas analyst at the International Energy Agency, and indeed it is a great pleasure to be here today at today's webinar organized by EBA. Please allow me to share a couple of thoughts on e-methane, which I like to call the golden molecule for two reasons. One is because e-methane can really play a key role in enabling the system integration of low emission gases in the future, and it can also be a key component of increasing the short and seasonal flexibility of the future gas systems. But it is also a golden molecule because it has, at the moment, very high production costs, which is, of course, a key challenge along the e-methane value chain. Before going into today's presentation, please allow me to say a couple of words about the IEA's Low Emission Gases Work Program. This work program has been launched about 2 years ago. With a technology neutral approach, we are looking at all the various low emission gases, including biomethane, hydrogen, and of course, e-methane. And really the aim of this work program is to enhance market monitoring related to low emission gases, provide guidance to policymakers on the system integration of these gases, and also to promote the producer-consumer dialogue in the space of low emission gases. And one reason why we are so much interested in low emission gases is because we see that in the medium term, their deployment will will accelerate. We expect that the supply of low emission gases will more than double by 2027, adding approximately 16 BCM of incremental gas. And Europe and North America are set to drive this strong expansion, accounting for approximately 70% of the additional supply. And as you can see on this chart, this will be mainly supported by the strong growth expected in biomethane as well as in low hydrogen. But we also see some space for e-methane, especially towards the end of the decade. But there is a number of issues related to e-methane, and some of those actually came out in the discussions we had last week at a webinar we organized on e-methane at the International Energy Agency. And one of them is, of course, the policy agenda and the public awareness. E-methane, especially in Europe, received less attention compared to low emission gases, despite its potential to decarbonize existing gas networks. The second item is related to data availability and transparency, and this is partly due to the infancy of this industry. And this is why I also would like to commend the European Biogas Association on putting on the table the e-methane question and for publishing this extremely insightful and very important report. We need to have better data, more transparency related to e-methane project developments. A third issue relates to carbon accounting rules, and we need an international standardization because e-methane is expected to become a global market. So there is a need to harmonize CO2 accounting rules and also to see how the various certification schemes can work more closely together. And the fourth issue is, of course, related to high production costs of e-methane. We will discuss this in a few minutes. So e-methane is essentially produced through a two-step process. First, we have low-emission electricity, which is transformed into hydrogen via electrolysis. And then in the second step, low-emission hydrogen is transformed into methane with the addition of a carbon source. In order to consider e-methane as a low-emission gas, carbon needs to be either of biogenic origin or sourced from via direct air capture. And also a commercial proposition for carbon neutral e-methane could also consider the use of CO2 captured at industrial or power plants and offset through carbon credits. Now, of course, e-methane is perfectly interchangeable with natural gas, and as such could play a significant role in decarbonizing existing gas networks without the need for retrofitting. Similarly to natural gas, e-methane can be stored in underground storage sites. It can be also liquefied and make use of the existing LNG infrastructure. And as such, it could enable the development of long-distance trade and support also the decarbonization of the maritime transport. But of course, e-methane has its own challenges. The production process of e-methane represents a substantial efficiency losses. More than half of the primary energy is lost during the two-step conversion process. And of course, its production would require the development of a separate carbon value chain and emission accounting system. The complex value chain underpinning the production of e-methane means that both investment costs and operational expenses are relatively high. Current e-methane production costs are estimated to be in the range of $50 to $200 per MMBTU, which is about 4 to 15 times higher than current Asian spot energy prices. And under our announced pledges scenario, we see significant scope for production cost reductions, moderating down to a range of $30 to $80 per MMBTU, which is still significantly higher than natural gas prices or low emission hydrogen costs. And this highlights really the need for further technological development and policy support, including through a closer dialogue between future producers and consumers. Now, this scheme is a bit more complex than the previous ones, and it shows how the scale-up of low-emission gases will transform our existing gas system. Production will become more decentralized, gas qualities more diverse, and supply in a way less flexible. So in this context, e-methane can really play a crucial role in the system integration of low-emission gases while enhancing the seasonal and short-term flexibility of the gas system. E-methane would enable the coupling of future methane and hydrogen network. So for instance, surplus hydrogen could be converted into e-methane before injected into the methane system. And while acting as a bridge between the two networks, e-methane will also provide new trading opportunities and lead to a more efficient distribution of gas flows. E-methane has also wider storage options compared with hydrogen. Besides salt caverns, it could be also stored in porous reservoirs, in gaseous forms, and in LNG storage tanks. Hence, e-methane could play a key role in meeting seasonal or short-term energy demand swings. Now, the scale-up of e-methane will also require strong policies on the demand side. In fact, demand creation will be crucial to support final investment decisions in e-methane production facilities. And Japan is leading those efforts. The country's sixth strategic energy plan set a target for e-methane to account for 1% of gas supply in existing gas networks by 2030, with its share rising to 90% by 2050. So this map shows a non-exhaustive list of e-methane projects all around the world. In Northern Europe, we see that the e-methane landscape is very much dominated by Finland, and we also see that Japanese utilities have been very actively exploring the feasibility of e-methane projects together with LNG exporting countries such as Australia, Peru, or the United States. And while the number of final investment decisions remains rather limited, global e-methane production could reach over 1 BCM by 2030 based on the projects which are currently being proposed. LNG exporters account for approximately 80% of the potential e-methane production by 2030, highlighting the perfect match between e-methane and the existing LNG infrastructure. And just to give us a few key takeaways from this brief introductory presentation, at the International Energy Agency, we see that low-emission gases are set for very rapid growth over the medium term, and they are expected to more than double by 2027. Nevertheless, further efforts are required to reach the ambitious targets set by governments. E-methane, which is perfectly interchangeable with natural gas, could play a significant role in decarbonizing existing gas networks without the need for retrofitting. This being said, the complex value chain underpinning the production of e-methane means that both investment costs and operational expenses are relatively high, and current e-methane production costs are 4 to 15 times higher than Asian spot LNG prices. And this really highlights the need to reduce those production costs, to steepen the learning curves via international cooperation and greater policy support. Because what we also see is that e-methane could play a crucial role in the system integration of low emission gases while enhancing the overall flexibility of the gas system. And we also should not forget about the demand side. Demand creation will be really critical to support final investment decisions in the e-methane value chain. And we see that there is a quite ambitious pipeline of projects which could lead to the deployment of around 1 BCM of e-methane by 2030. I would like to thank you for your kind attention, and also I would like to express my sincere thank you to the European Biogas Association for holding this very important webinar today, and wishing you very fruitful discussion. Thank you for your kind attention.
And thank you very much indeed, Gergely, also for your insightful presentation and providing the dimension of the economic challenges that scaling up e-methane has, but also the benefit in terms of energy system integration and the challenges, but also the possibilities in scaling up this very sector. So thank you again. Mike De Corte, our technical director now, will give us an idea of the work that the European Biogas Association, together with the methanation task force, has done during the last months, and will give us actually an idea of the present and how this will evolve into the future of e-methane. Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Julia, for the introduction. So indeed, today my presentation will be focused around an inventory of the e-methane plants that we have mapped across Europe as an exercise of the EBA and of course also our members. But before I go into the numbers, I also want to say a few words about what is methanation and why is methanation an interesting technology for the future. Then we will go into the inventory itself, and then I also will conclude with some economic considerations. So first of all, what do we mean with methanation? So basically, methanation is with methanation we refer to e-methane production technologies, and this is a group of technologies that enables the conversion of electricity into methane, and the molecules that we use for this are usually carbon dioxide and hydrogen as raw materials. So as a first step, we have the hydrogen production, and then as a second step, the carbon dioxide recovery. We call the first step hydrogen production, but actually in some cases you can also use the electricity directly, and I will go a bit more in depth into that later. So, but let's say in the biggest part of the cases, the electricity is first converted to hydrogen within an electrolysis process. Then in the second step, carbon dioxide recovery, this can come from different sources. In our analysis, we have focused on biogas from AD and also on syngas from gasification. But in our, let's say, in our total inventory, we also have included other sources of carbon dioxide. So before let's say the carbon dioxide go to methanation, it can either be, let's say, separated into a pure carbon dioxide stream, or you can also use the biogas or the syngas directly. In the case of using the syngas directly, it can even be the case that you're not only using carbon dioxide, but you're also using carbon monoxide as an input to the methanation process. Then when we go to the actual e-methane production, we have two main technologies that are existing and developed at the moment. The first one is biological methanation, in which you use microorganisms together with a nutrient source to convert the carbon dioxide and hydrogen into methane. And the second one is chemical or catalytic methanation. They are synonyms, in which we will use a chemical catalyst to convert again those two molecules into e-methane. when we look a bit more in depth into biological methanation, we can again have, two main categories. We have in situ biological methanation and ex situ biological methanation. So in the in situ biological methanation, the methanation will take place in one reactor, and with this we mainly refer to methanation of biogas, so in an AD reactor. So in this case, you can either inject hydrogen into the biogas reactor, and then basically you will convert the carbon dioxide in the biogas directly in the AD reactor to methane. And an additional advantage here is that you can also, let's say, stimulate the microorganism in the reactor. So you not only have the conversion of carbon dioxide into methane, but you also have an increased activity, whereas and therefore you have more methane from the same amount of feedstocks. And alternatively, we can also use electrodes that will basically inject electricity into the AD reactor directly, and again produce the additional methane. The ex situ biological methanation, it's similar, but it will take place in a separate reactor. Then you can use the biogas directly, or you can first do a separation of the biogas into methane and carbon dioxide, and have a biological methanation process. The advantage of having a separate reactor is that the process is more easy to control, because you control the different parameters separately, and it has also broader applications, because you can also use other sources of carbon dioxide. So why would we do methanation? It was already mentioned by Gergely. So basically, one of the biggest advantages of doing methanation is the integration of the energy system, and that you will make a stronger connection between the electricity and the gas grids. So basically, you can use excess electricity that is, for example, produced in the summer and cannot directly be used. You can transform it into methane and store it in the gas grid in the form of e-methane. So with this, we can actually have seasonal energy storage, which is much more difficult to achieve with other technologies, such as, for example, via batteries. And we also have let's say, the complementary roles that become more apparent here of hydrogen and biomethane into our future energy system. This is also shown here on this infographic, where you see this connection between the power system and the gas system that is facilitated by methanation. So what have we done now at the EBA in the past 6 months? We have mapped the e-methane production plants in Europe, and we have also categorized them and let's say gathered several attributes, so several attributes of the e-methane plants. So we have categorized the plants based on the source of electricity and also the source of the carbon dioxide. And we have some other information that we also gathered, which are the plants planned, or are they already in operation? Are they pilot or industrial plants? And also, what is their geographical distribution? In total, we identified at the moment 55 methanation plants and projects in Europe. So these are both the ones that are already active and operational and the ones that are in the pipeline for the coming years. Out of these 55 plants, we have 44 plants which are fully renewable, so which means they use renewable electricity and also biogenic carbon dioxide. And the number of active plants at the moment is 35. So we have 35 active plants identified, and another 20 plants are at the moment under development. Now, when we look into a bit deeper into the capacities, then we see that 98% of the total capacity that we identified comes from fully renewable plants. So this graph shows the the evolution, the current and also the expected between now and 2027 of the number of methanation plants in Europe. So we have seen an increase between 2015 and 2023 of, let's say, a 5-fold increase. And we see even an accelerated growth in the years to come. So this really shows that this is a promising technology, and we already see a lot of plants coming up. We have at the moment 10 European countries that have either active plants or have plants in the pipeline. And the growth expected from the coming years is mainly situated in France with 11 plants upcoming, Finland with 8 plants upcoming, and Germany with 6 plants upcoming between now and 2027. And at the moment, both at the moment and in 2027, Germany, France, and Finland are the leaders in terms of e-methane production. Then, when we look at the production capacity, the let's say the expected growth is even steeper. So we went from 20 gigawatt hours per year in 2025 towards around 450 in 2023, and then we expect a growth towards 3,000 gigawatt hours per year in 2027. The biggest production capacities at the moment are in Finland, Germany, and Denmark. We see a very big part of the anticipated production capacity in Finland. This was also already mentioned by Gergely. So the main reason for that is that Finland has a big source of biogenic CO2 due to different reasons. For example, they have biogenic CO2 coming from their district heating facilities, but also from pulp and paper companies, waste to energy plants, and of course also from anaerobic digestion and gasification. So when it comes to plant size distribution, we have here categorized in plants smaller than 10 gigawatt hour per year, plants between 10 and 300 gigawatt hour per year, and plants bigger than 300 gigawatt hour per year. So we see at the moment that a big part of the plants are smaller than 10 gigawatt hour per year. And this is mainly due to the fact that at the moment we are in an, let's say, in a research and development phase. We are reaching the, let's say, the commercial tier levels, but at the moment the active plants are very often pilot plants. So this is also the reason why we see here this this big part. When we, or let's say, we also have plotted the type of methanation per plant size, and then you see that in the smaller, you see that for biological methanation the plants are usually a bit smaller, and for catalytic methanation the plants are more in the, let's say, are more likely to be bigger. There were 2 reasons for that. The first one is that biological methanation has a bit of a lower tier level than catalytic methanation. So this means we still have a bigger part of the plants that are in the pilot and demonstration phase, but it's also due to the carbon dioxide sourcing. If you have carbon dioxide sourcing from a biogas plant, it's likely that this is a smaller plant than you have another source of biogenic CO2. And this brings us also to the graph on the right. So based on the, let's say, for each plant, we have looked for what is the source of biogenic CO2, and we have made the distribution here. So you see that for more than half of the plants that we identified, the source comes from AD. Then we have another 9% from gasification and another 24% other sources of biogenic CO2. Then I will conclude with some economic considerations. So first of all, there is significant potential for existing biomethane plants because the methane output of a plant can be increased by 40 to 60%. The technology is very promising in the future power system, or in, let's say, in a future power system with which is dominated by intermittent renewables, because we have seen also in the keynote that the production costs at the moment are quite high. But it's also true that the biggest part of the production costs at the moment lie in the hydrogen and the power costs. So the profitability of the plants will highly depend on the cost of the electricity, and also the value that, or the economic value that as a society we give to the power grid stability. So when you have when we have a future power system with a lot of intermittent renewables and the prices come down, this means that also the production cost of e-methane will come down, because once the electricity and the carbon dioxide is available, the technology itself, it's not super expensive. As an operator, you can have different operating strategies. So either you can operate for a few hours, which means that you will have cheap electricity, but you will also have a higher capex because you need a bigger plant. Or you can operate for longer duration, so you have more operating hours in a year. But then, of course, your prices will be somewhat higher for the electricity. But at the same time, it also means that you will have a lower capex. I will conclude here.
Thanks a lot, Mieke, and also thanks a lot to all the ones that contributed to the research, both within the secretariat and within our membership. I see a lot of applauses, so thank you for your support. I think that we can safely pass to the Q&A session. So Mieke, I hope you're ready. We have some good questions here. For the ones that we will not be able to address today, just be assured that we will try to give you an answer in written, or you can drop us an email. Gergely has unfortunately had to leave, so Mieke will answer to the questions that were posed to both of them. So let's go with the first one. This is a bit of a discussion answer, I would say. So Sean Scallan says, what about biogenic methane production through the simple anaerobic digestion? Surely this is a cheaper pathway?
Yes, so this is what was included in one of the first slides. So indeed, you can have, if you have the in situ methanation and you do the methanation itself in the AD plant, it indeed means that your overall process will be cheaper. This is true, because you will use the same reactor that the anaerobic digestion takes place and the methanation reactor takes place.
Yeah, I would just like to add the obvious. So here we're talking about doing something more, not as an alternative to anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion will remain the bulk of our production for the coming years and probably decades. But having alternative production pathways mitigates the risks and makes sure that we can scale up faster. So another question, this was intended for Gergely Molnar, but I think, Mieke, you might give some insights as well. This comes from Anne Madsen, and she asks, do you think that there will be a significant economy of scale building e-methane plants?
Yes, for sure. So you see that for catalytic methanation, we already have this technology at an industrial scale, but also biological methanation is now going to the higher tier levels, and for sure this will mean that the production cost will come down. But also, as mentioned in my last slide, the main reason why the production cost for e-methane will come down is because for the support to the power system. So if there is excess electricity, then the price of electricity will come down or even become negative, and this e-methane production will become a solution to balance the power grid. So in this case, there will certainly be economic of scale.
Great. So I have a couple of questions here, also regarding countries. So I will put two of them together. The first one is from René Rasmussen, And he asks why Germany, France, and Finland are leading the development. Subsidies, regulation, other reasons. And the second questions regarding country come from Utstav Duta, and it's Germany has the highest cost of green electrons. So how is it poised as one of the most promising markets for producing e-methane?
Okay, so I can reply for Finland and France. So for Finland, certainly the main reason is that they have a lot of biogenic CO2 available, so it makes very much sense to produce e-methane. This is the first reason, but also the second, that they have a high demand for the maritime transport, and this is also let's say very interesting and or an interested off-taker of this e-methane. For France, I would say it's mainly it's also related to the regulation, because you see there also a push from the government to go towards methane, and there in this let's say in this system also e-methane is getting more and more attention. For Germany, I would need to double check, but I can imagine that it has mainly to do with their power grid, because Germany in general is focusing on the flexibility of the power grid. So I can imagine this is also the reason why they go towards e-methane.
So here there's another question, Mike, on one of the graphs that you showed. This comes from Mikko Sirjanen. The production capacity graph you showed, is this showing plants that are ready, or does it include projects under development, under construction, etc.? I don't see hundreds of gigawatt-hour production capacity ready in Finland since 2023. So what is the status of this?
So in our graphs, the plants until 2023, they are active and up and running. The plants starting from 2024 to 2027, they are under development. So that means they are planned, and there is an estimated starting date of operation, which is the one that we included in our graphs.
Mika, I have two questions regarding technologies. So the first one comes from Peter Plesner, and he asks whether we consider methanation from pyrolysis gas. And he says pyrolysis gas can also complement biogas production, I guess, from AD. And then Gerd Wölbling asks, did you consider sewage sludge plants as a place for methanation as well? IMHO, they could fit quite well into the picture, given that they actually could utilize the oxygen produced during electrolysis.
Sorry, I'm.
So we can go for the first. Yeah, we can go for the first one first. So methanation from pyrolysis gas and gasification.
Yes, so indeed, actually, at the end of the white paper that we will publish right after this webinar, there is an annex with all the plants that we have identified, and there the source of biogenic CO2 is included, and indeed we have biogenic CO2 from AD or biogenic CO2 from syngas. So far, as far as I know, we did not have specific examples on the CO or the CO2 from pyrolysis, but I think it can for sure be an option in the future. Then on the second question, I was processing the last part on the oxygen use.
So
okay, yes, I think yes. Okay, yes, it's an interesting pathway. We did not have any examples yet of the integration then of the let's say of the oxygen of the electrolysis being used in the sewage plant, but I think it's an interesting option. What we do have seen is that the sewage sludge or the, let's say, the wastewater is being used as a source of nutrients in the biological methanation. Because if you do biological methanation, you need the microorganism, but you also need to feed them. So you need the nutrient source. And we have already seen pilots that are using wastewater as the nutrient source, which makes it cheaper, basically.
I other two questions only, and then I guess that we can close. And Mike, you're very free to type in the answers in the remaining part of the webinar. I saw a very interesting question from Jeppe Beck. Is asking whether we have a list of e-methanation plants in EU within the EBA.
Yes, this is exactly what what we have done in this exercise, and indeed we publish it in the annex of our white paper.
Okay, and I had a question I have promised you would give an answer to from Kees van der Leun. He's asking the question to both you and Gergerly. Do you see synthetic methane using fossil CO2 but providing CCS a point of use as e-methane?
I believe the preferred source of carbon dioxide will be biogenic for sure, and we already see it in the active and the upcoming plants. Even if you use, let's say, a fossil CO2 for piloting, that can be an option. But even in the pilot plants, we see that very often biogenic CO2 is already used, and I believe this will also be the path for the future. If we then can, with this biogenic CO2, still do carbon capture and use afterwards, even better.
All right, Mike, thanks a lot for your presentation and for answering to the questions. I would say that I could gently accompany the audience towards the next section of our webinar today, the panel discussion. So I would ask Alessandro Agostini, Head of Sustainability of Energy Technology Unit, Energy Technologies and Renewables Department at ENEA, Gauthier Mangenot, Public Affairs Senior Consultant, Energy at Enosis, and representatives from BIP Task Force 4.1, and Etienne Philippe, Renewables and Low Carbon Gases Project Officer at GRDF, to show their faces. I see you all. Welcome to this webinar. I have a first question to all of you. So we have heard from Mike, from Gergely, and we hear that there are a lot of different technologies that are being facing the market. So there are different also methanation technologies that have been developing in parallel in Europe. In terms of speeding up the development of e-methane, would you rather see this broad range of technologies as an advantage or as a disadvantage? And please feel free also to take a moment to introduce the organization you're coming from. I think that we can start with Alessandro.
Okay, thank you for inviting. I'm Alessandro Agostini from ENEA in Italy, and I've been involved in biomethane, especially biomethane sustainability, for many years. And well, I can provide the answer. Again, in general, having a wide range of technological options in a sector is an advantage, normally the diversity allows for a greater flexibility in addressing the specific needs of the industrial system, also the ecosystem or the industrial plants installations. That I believe that all the technologies should be somehow developed in parallel, because focusing only on one or few technologies, you might miss some opportunities. For example, I'm involved in the European project Biometaverse, where we are developing all these 5 different technologies for methanation. And some of them are more mature, and those which are already deployed commercially, like biomethanation, off-site, off-situ biomethanation, and thermochemical methanation. Some of them, which are more like niche or specific, is like on-site biomethanation, which you bubble hydrogen with the anaerobic digester, and biomethanation of syngas. These are somehow less developed. They have a lower TRL, but they have their specific applications. There's another technology which was mentioned also by Mike, which is the electrobiomethanation, which is very promising because you completely skip the process of producing hydrogen with the associated efficiency loss. So that's very interesting. And my point is that each of these technologies could have added values in different contexts. And clearly, and also if you consider that these technologies could be deployed in very different installation or ecosystem in which the CO2 is produced in different, is made available in different amounts and with different properties. For example, my point is that probably they will be deployed in biogas and biomethane facilities for refurbishing them or integrating this methanation, because the biogas and biomethane facilities are already industrial sites. They're already the take care of the biomethane or the methane or e-methane produced. So it's like a low-hanging fruit. And in this case, like all of them have different specificities, so they should be developed in parallel. Regarding the speed of development, well, that's clear that they should be developed quickly, all of them, and quickly deployed, because as was mentioned, decoupling the power sector to the natural gas grid is probably the best option to enable a large penetration of renewable power grid system, because the natural gas grid has a very high storage capacity, which enable the storage of the renewable power, interseasonal storage of the renewable power, and natural gas is a very flexible fuel. So I guess all these technologies should be developed very quickly, and focusing on just few of them would be pity.
Thank you, Alessandro. So more technology equals more flexibility. They need to be developed and deployed all at the same time, and this gives a chance to the system and to system integration. Gauthier, what is your opinion on this?
Yes, hello, good morning to everyone, and thanks for inviting. So my name is Gauthier Mangenot, and I'm working with a French company called Enosis, which is dealing with biological methanation, but I'm here as well today as a member of BIP Task Force 4.1, which is actually drafting a report complementary to the one of EBA, but I will maybe say some words later. Just to answer to your first question, I totally agree with Alessandro. It's an advantage, definitely, in Europe to have this different technology developing in parallel. As Alessandro mentioned, and as it was said before, there are different cases, different situations, which require to deal with the best business model that you can find, and the market is developing, and it's good that the market is providing different solutions. Saying that you cannot rely only on one technology, I believe, otherwise it's a too much big risk. And as we are all moving toward a transition system, this is definitely an advantage and a good thing that we are developing several technology in parallel. Methanation is not a new thing. It has been a long time ago discovered by Paul Sabatier, and it was like 120 years ago, I think. But the cost has always been an issue. That's why we didn't develop so far this process all around the world, and this is what we are doing right now. So it's a good thing that we are developing different technology again.
Thank you, Gauthier, and thank you for bringing in also the dimension of risk mitigation that diversity can bring. Etienne, I would call you in. What do you think about this?
Hi everybody. So I'm Etienne Philippe from GRDF, which is the main gas distribution system operator in France and also in Europe. And we have 600 anaerobic digestion sites injecting into our grid already. And we are hoping that all the other renewable and low carbon gases will join very soon. So a lot has been said already. maybe what I can say about this is that at first, indeed, e-methane can be seen as a niche market with not room for everybody, but that will be hiding all the different architectures that can coexist, and are being explored. Speaking about the different size, origin of the CO2, which can be pure from biogas or syngas also. There are several level of integrations that Alessandro mentioned for example, in the biomethane project. So ex-situ, in situ, or even fully integrated like electrocatalysis technologies, which are combining electrolysis and methanation. And also, there is some parallel development from all these actors that can be mentioned. So methanation is not new, and it's been used, for example, for syngas conversion in gasification processes. So there is some bridges that can be made, and cross development, I would say. Or even to produce other molecules. So all of this can benefit to foster innovation and accelerate the development of e-methane project. And for example, some barriers are common for example, for catalytic processes. You need heat management. So it's better to have several players finding different solutions to this. For biological, you need scale up and also a transfer of the gas into the liquid phase. All of this can be explored in various ways. So it's a good thing to have lots of actors to find and optimize the research of solutions.
Thank you, Etienne. I will go a second back to Gauthier. In fact, Gauthier, you mentioned during your introduction that you are indeed a member of the Biomethane Industrial Partnership, and you have been active in Task Force 4.1, specifically on methanation, on something complementary to the work that EBA is doing. Can you tell us more about the scope of activities and the objectives of this specific task force?
Sure. So this task force is looking at insight, or it will provide insights on best practice for efficient and low cost production of biomethane injection. And part of this job right now, we are looking more specifically on methanation, being seen as a way to boost biomethane production and reach ambitious targets in the EU. What we are doing right now with this report, so we are still drafting and consolidating all the members' contribution. We will meet this week in Brussels for in-person workshop, and this is our aim to publish by mid-November this report. What we will do, what you will find inside this report, and what will be interesting, I guess, for most of the people, is the cost perspective and sensitive analysis. So this work is still going on, and we are gathering contribution for the different members for centralized, decentralized, ex-situ, in-situ, catalytic, biological. It's quite a job because there are so many different cases, so many different size of plants, and depending on, of course, the availability and price of the core entrance, which is the biological CO2. We are looking only at the biological CO2 and renewable hydrogen, which depends, of course, of the price of electricity. So this is what we are doing right now, and you will know more in a few weeks.
And thank you, Gauthier. Why is a company such as Enosis sort of investing resources in such an activity?
Because Enosis is a French company, founded like 10 years ago in France. I'm sure Philippe Etienne knows us. And we have been active in biological methanation, developing with French research centers in Toulouse and in Lyon. And for us, it's very important to bring as much as possible contribution at the European Union level, because we see that there's a lot of inputs and a lot of vision at this level, especially for the energy system that is transitioning right now. And methanation is part of the solution that will make the transition smooth and a reality.
Thanks a lot, Gauthier. I would go back to, I would say, also the technical part and into the future. And I have a question here for Alessandro. So e-methane can be produced from different sources of carbon, as we've seen also from the analysis that was explained before. So the CO2 can be biogenic, but also fossil. And in your opinion, which type of CO2 sources do you believe will be the most interesting for the future?
Well, in the future, but we have seen also now that there's a clear winner, which is the biogenic CO2. This is, well, because first, ideally in the future, we should decouple our economy from fossil fuels because of many reasons, besides climate change, also the geopolitical instability. But from a policy-making perspective, it makes sense also to steer now industry towards the use of biogenic CO2, because otherwise we risk the effect of a lock-in in the industry system. Because if you start to build plants now, even if they are not built now, but you build plants running with fossil CO2, in the next 10 years, they will be still running in 2050. So it's a serious lock-in of our energy system. That's why the policy making should start now to steer towards the use of biogenic CO2. And also because somehow there's quite a significant amount of easily available CO2 from biogas plants, for example, which are not big in size, but they are big in number. So with the biogenic CO2 from the biogas plants, if you do the methanation with one of the systems we mentioned, you could increase the renewable methane production by like 60%. So it's really like, again, a low-hanging fruit. There are other biological processes like fermentation, breweries, and wherever there's a fermentation, which you have an almost, well, a clean source of biogenic CO2, which could be deployed. And so, yeah, I would say, yeah, the winner is in any case the biogenic CO2. It should be that it's a no-brainer. I mean, in the short term, you could use some fossil powered plants emission CO2 from a fossil power, because it's really good to couple the power grid with the natural gas grid. But in the medium to long term, it's really the biogenic CO2 that it's more interesting, for sure.
Thank you, Alessandro. And Etienne, so how GRDF sees the growth path of e-methane production in France in the coming decades?
So in France at the moment, we have like maybe a dozen projects in development with various architecture in terms of size, catalytic or biological technology. But they mostly are sourcing their CO2 from anaerobic digestion. So as Alessandro mentioned, it's readily available and it's very pure. So you have almost no marginal cost, close to zero marginal cost to capture it compared to exhaust fumes from combustion, for example. And so we have several projects. There is a Jupiter 1000, Jupiter 1000, Métis-Centre, Denobio from Enosis, Po project. So yeah, all these projects are expected to inject into the grid very soon, the methane production. We actually had the first injection in the summer 2022 from Energo project. So it was the first of a kind, and we are quite happy about this. But we hope that the other project will join the injection very soon. So from a regulatory perspective, e-methane can really benefit from the strong regulation framework which is in place in France. It's been implemented over the 10 past years in the context of biomethane development. So today in France, any producer of renewable, low carbon or recovery gases is entitled to access the grid for grid injection. And a producer will benefit from the right to inject. So it's a framework which is supervised by the French energy regulator, and it aims at optimizing the grid and the reimbursement that will accommodate for the gas injected. And basically, cost-benefit ratio, which is made. It's a territorial analysis where the regulator is supervising the need of investment to strengthen the grid, and when the ratio is favorable, the producer can pay almost zero for the acceptance of the gas into the grid. So it can be either reinforcement between two consumption area, but we also have compression stations to the gas pressure network. And all of this really will benefit to the e-methane development. So really using all the existing gas infrastructures, which is already compliant with e-methane. So hopefully we will have a few industrial projects, so larger projects by 2030, and maybe several terawatt hour of production by 2050. But of course, it will depend, on CO2 availability. But with biogas and gasification project development, surely the biogenic CO2 will be available and concentrated. But mostly it will depend on the framework on the renewable power capacity development, and we really need better signal for seasonal energy storage. And also at the moment, we are lacking the low carbon gases framework. It's expected to be published in a delegated act, but we are waiting for it, because in France we have a low carbon power. But yeah, it's a missing piece so far for projects that are wanting to put value on it.
Thank you, Philippe. You already touched upon a couple of very hot subjects, the need for spatial planning, and this is true for methanation as much as it is for AD and upgrading to biomethane, reinforcement to the grid. So that's very good. But this also brings me to the last question of this panel, which is forcibly policy and regulatory related. We heard from Gergely from the start that one of the challenges of the scaling up of the sector is actually regulation. So my question for all of you, and we can start with Philippe and then go back. Do you believe that the European policy framework is ready to scale up e-methane production, or are there specific improvements to the regulation still needed?
So yeah, to continue about what I was saying, we really need to close the gap between fossil and renewable or low carbon energies and gases. So all the framework that was brought by RED regulations, so RED 2 and RED 3, were really necessary to steer the production into the proper direction, that were more durable practices. So the CO2 accounting is a good thing to foster biogenic CO2 especially. The power supply rules are necessary also at the greenhouse gases emission reduction target. However, producer really need a long-term visibility in terms of economics, viable business models. And we see that the vast majority of cost of e-methane bears on the power and the OPEX costs. So we really need a full framework, especially what I mentioned, the low carbon gases needs to be clearly defined along with the renewable gases. And also it should come from the demand side. So at the moment, it's mostly the maritime sector that has a willingness to pay high price for energy to decarbonize energy from the FuelEU Maritime. But yeah, this willingness to pay and to close the gap between fossil and renewable needs to be broadened to all sectors, I would say.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Etienne. And Alessandro, what is your take on the policy side?
Yeah, on the policy side, well, on the policy framework, well, it's unfortunate that it took the war in Ukraine to set such ambitious targets for renewable gases. So the policy now is ambitious, but I agree with Philippe with Etienne on the economics, incentives, and so on. But I have a really specific improvement of the regulation, because my expertise is mostly on greenhouse gas accounting, especially for biomethane. And looking at the regulations, where I see a potential barrier for the economic operators, especially for biomethane producers, is that if they install a methanation plant, they will have to report or to navigate two different systems, because they will be producing a biofuel and a renewable fuel from biological origin. So they will have to report the greenhouse gas accounting, also the guarantee of origin, and the incentives for biofuels and the renewable fuel of non-biological origin, which could be an administrative burden and a cost for the economic operators. There are a few potential solutions. One of them is just to consider the power for the production of hydrogen as an additional input to the biofuel production. That would simplify, and it's kind of acceptable according to the directive. However, it might be not convenient for the economic operator, because probably, for what we have seen, the e-fuel will have an additional value compared to the biofuel, the biomethane. So it's the economic operator who would want to navigate the two different systems. But there is also something very specific in the regulation which is difficult to solve, which is the quantification of the biofuel produced and the renewable fuel of non-biological origin produced. For some of the technologies, like the in-situ biomethanation or the electrobiomethanogenesis, these two technologies both somehow improve the anaerobic digestion process, which means you don't know exactly what is the amount of fuel produced with the energy content of the biomass and the amount of methane which is produced with power. So it is difficult really to quantify that. So, but yeah, there's no easy solution. I guess we will have to wait for how the sector will evolve in the future, and probably adjust or find some solutions to this potential burden, especially for biomethane plants.
Thank you, Alessandro, for bringing the regulatory dimension in, and also offering a couple of possible low-hanging fruit solution to the administrative complexities that operators will have to face. Gauthier, what do you think? What do we need for the sector to flourish?
Yeah, first, let's be positive. There is quite a lot of piece of regulation in the EU that is considering e-methane right now. I mean, from a classification point of view, you can be, depending of where you're sourcing your electricity, hydrogen and CO2, it can be a RFNBO, it can be a low carbon fuel, it can be a recycled carbon fuel. Of course, it's complex, but still it exists. So we are not starting from scratch. Of course, targets is very important in the EU policies. It has been mentioned. I mean, right now the e-methane is considered. I mean, if you look at the RFNBO, you would be part of it, but it's not very clear if you are really considered or not, or if the customer will receive more incentive just to go with hydrogen and not e-methane to switch. So this has to be, I think there's something that can be clarified here. And market rules, of course, gas package as give access to, give some highlights on e-methane regarding the rules for access to the grid and the tariff and the calculation of network tariff. So this is good. I mean, policy, I think, require further work, and this is what we are doing and why we are here today, and to give and contribute to this policy. But it has to move a little bit further, for sure, in order to accelerate the scale up of e-methane.
Thank you, Gauthier, Alessandro, and Philippe for participating to this short discussion, and also to underline what are the challenges in technical, economics, and policy that we will have to face in the next years if we believe that the diversification of technological pathways is an important step to scale up renewable gases. I will move towards a close, but before we get there, I would like also to thank, of course, Mike, Gergely, all the contributors to the white paper. And I would ask you to stay with us a second, because I would ask you to pencil out in our agenda our next appointments. So on December 12th, we will launch our white paper on gasification. And this is the second step in terms of talking about diversifying production pathways. And before that, I hope to see you all in Brussels during the European Biomethane Week on the 23rd and 24th of October. And if you haven't registered yet, please do book your seat. There are still some available, but not that many. So please use the link that is provided on screen. Again, thank you all for your participation today. And we will follow up with the presentations and the link to the white paper, as well as the recordings of today's discussion. Have a very good day and a fruitful week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.